What's up, everyone? What's up? Who's ever out there? How you guys doing? Welcome to the show. Um, I'll wait till some of y'all get up in here. But basically, the show. Jesus, what I've named this show? Oh my gosh. The show's going to be about where to go in case of World War III. Reason why this show's out here is because, as you may have heard, that there was an operation down in the Strait of Hormuz, a potential re-flare up, and that could cause some prices to rise. And I decided right now it's the prices here is just getting outrageous, and they ain't nobody focusing on. Go to my comment section, see who's out here. I decided to freaking do a show on this to show where places to go during conflict that is sustainable. But since we got one in the room, let me just show you guys something. This is ridiculous. And this is to show you the level of stupidity our government has gone into. Let me just play this.
Our view, the president's views, that was a very bad deal.
Okay.
It gave them a
That's
bunch
the
of money up
past.
front.
What's the future?
To fund, you talked about negotiated deals. Allowed them to fund their proxies and spread Hamas and Hezbollah all around the region, build up nuclear capabilities.
Great. What are we going to do now?
President Trump has been clear-eyed, from the killing of Qasem Soleimani to the pulling out of the Iran deal to Midnight Hammer and now to this effort to recognize that you have to stare down this kind of enemy who's hell-bent on getting a nuclear weapon and get them to a point where they're at the table giving it up in a way that
So they
never have it.
So they haven't broken yet. Okay, we haven't gotten there yet for all of the.
Well, their nuclear facilities have been obliterated. Underground, they're buried, and we're watching them 24/7. So we know where any nuclear material
reclaiming
might
my
be.
time for
we're
just
watching
a quick second here. We had to start this war, you just said, 60 days ago, because the nuclear weapon was an imminent threat. Now you're saying that it was completely obliterated?
They had not given up their nuclear ambitions, and they had a conventional shield of thousands of
So Operation Midnight Hammer accomplished
moment.
nothing of substance. It left us at exactly the same place we were before.
Do y'all hear that? Ambition. Let's look that up real quick. Ambition is a strong, persistent desire to achieve a particular goal, often involving advancement, success, power, or fame. So we're over here bombing people for feelings. We're paying $5 a gallon for gas over feelings. We ain't got no jobs because no jobs are being created because we got a government more concerned about feelings. What up, Pooh Man? This is ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. Feelings. Everybody's broke and getting unemployed. We just lost an airline because they can't afford gas. They can't afford jet fuel over feelings. We just unalived 170 school kids, schoolgirls, innocent girls in Iran over feelings. This government lost its damn mind. Let me get this crap out of here, off of here, because y'all don't deserve to even just deal with this. Let me put up what I need to put up, bro. Look, unfortunately, I couldn't put the original screen up there. This is going to be about where to go in terms of a place to go if you want to get out of the United States, what country to go to. That's going to be more suitable and sustainable for you guys, because there's a lot of people leaving the US. So what I did was I went into Claude AI and I put in these 5 core criteria for finding an ideal place for people to go. And these are the criteria that I've chosen. Energy dependency, the ability to produce oil and energy outside of the Middle East supply chain. Freedom from the petrodollar reliance, uses independent currency not tied to US oil trade. immigration accessibility, easy for foreigners to illegally enter and establish residency, self-sufficient, capable of sustaining food, energy, and essential resource production domestically, and foreign-friendly job market, realistic ability for immigrants to find meaningful employment. Because the reason why I put that in there particularly, because remote work, we might as well kick that to the curb. Because you got AI, that's not going to be an issue. That's going to be gone. Okay, AI is taking over these remote jobs. So, and plus, I'm going to be doing a video probably next week or another live next week about digital nomads going broke. Okay, because that's another fantasy right now, not in this economy. And this is not just happening in the United States, this is also happening globally because UK, I was just reading an article, UK 200,000 households are going under. So this is global, guys. But what country is good for us to go to immigrate to? These are going to be the 5 criterias. So let's just start off with the first one. And this is Uruguay. And I apologize for this being small. Let me just reduce myself. Uruguay, which is down in South America. I'm going to do this so I can read along with it because I can't really read this. I'm going to pull up the actual PowerPoint. Okay. Hold up. Oops. Boot. Uruguay, mostly accessible permanent residency program requires only a modest proof of income and a clean criminal record. Generates 75% of its electricity from renewable, and is one of Latin America's most stable democracies. Has a very low cost of living. It's been Uruguay's been on your eye. Yeah, good choice. Less well known than the other options, meaning it could be least overwhelmed in actual crisis, which is true because a lot of people don't know about Uruguay. Easy permanent residency, renewable energy, stable democracy. Only thing about it, the primary risk is Spanish is required for long-term integration. It has a small economy limits job opportunities for foreigners. So that's going to be the bad side of it. It doesn't have a bigger economy, so a lot of people can't really get jobs. And the reason why I'm focusing on that is, like I said, remote work. If like the economy crashes here, because right now we are insolvent, we can't pay our bills, and if we can't pay our bills, that means our job market sucks. So where are we going to get money to do, remote work? Where these remote jobs going to come from? So you're going to need a plan B if you're going to exit. So you might as well find a country where it's going to be foreign friendly, as far as, getting a job. And there are countries that will hire you, but not all countries will, because it's usually locals first, but you got to be prepared for that stuff. You know what I mean? So that's Uruguay. And it's coastal too. So you got the beach. Well, there's other cool stuff. Slower economy, yeah. Second one is New Zealand. Consistently ranked among the safest countries in the globe. And it's further away from major nations, likely in conflict zones. 65% is energy comes from renewable. It produces far more food than consume, and it's English speaking, which you don't have to learn the language, which is great. I know that's blocking it. Sorry about that. I don't think I can move that. Hold up. Let me see if I can switch that up. Yeah, the only thing about it, it's a very small population, which is less than 5 million, which means if a lot of people want to integrate over there, it's going to be overwhelmed. So that's going to be a problem. So they're going to probably do some limitations on going to this country. That's going to be a major issue with New Zealand. But again, conflict wise, being so far out, another issue I would say about that is that if it's going to be a fuel issue, trying to get there, New Zealand's a long distance. So flights is going to be pricey. So we got to keep that in mind. Switzerland. Um, what we say about Switzerland? Switzerland is not a NATO member, so it's not going to really get involved in stuff. It's always been neutral for over 200 years, and it's stayed out a lot of conflict. Um, let me see. Its neutrality is, it has an excellent infrastructure, strong franc that historically strengthened during global crisis, high food production relative to its size, and surrounded by mountains that provides natural geographic protection. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, but the only primary risk of that is Switzerland is expensive and the immigration is generally difficult. It prioritizes EU and EFT citizens and has a restriction quota for everyone else. But there's a way around that, to be honest with you. You can get around that. Um, it also imports a meaningful portion of energy and food, making it somewhat vulnerable to supply chain disruption. That's the only thing about that with Switzerland. Um, the way you can get around it is that you can get a job there because they are looking for foreigners in various fields, tech, medical, uh, legal. They do look for those people. They do certain European countries have an aging population where they just can't get enough qualified people because they're aging out. So they're looking for people with skill sets. So they are looking for those that are um, looking for foreigners with certain skill sets, and they will work with you to try to get your visas and all that other stuff. So Switzerland is one of those countries. So definitely worth looking at. Um, and like I said, I'm including that in there because it's, you know, remote work that's going to be dying out. So, oh, passport broke country. Ooh, Brazil. Um, Brazil almost had almost every physical resource you can want in a crisis. Is one of the world's largest country. Food super power, has a massive deep water oil reserve. World's largest sugarcane ethanol producer. Residency is relatively easy to obtain. It really is. The main drawback is the high urban crime rates, political instability, and you definitely have to know Portuguese. Um, that is the only issue. The high crime rate in urban areas, political polarization, and Portuguese language requirement, economic inequality is extreme. Let me also throw in racism. Okay, it's racism is a kind of an issue over there. Especially if you're working in industries and stuff like that. That's where a lot of problem comes in. So that's something you have to think about. Um, other than that, I mean, I've been to Rio. Rio's beautiful. I love Rio. It's a beautiful city. People are nice and friendly, but when it gets to working, it's a different vibe. A lot of people tell me it's a very different vibe. Some guys, they're like, um, the treatment is, they kind of confuse you for the locals, but when they realize you're American, you get slightly treated differently, but that's about it. So I kind of don't like that type of vibe. So that's just my viewpoint on that. Argentina. Um, Argentina has an extraordinary physical resource. The Muerta Formation is one of the world's largest shared oil and gas reserves, and Argentina is one of the world's top exporters of soy, beef, and grain. Permanent residency is easy to obtain. Primary drawback is Argentina's long history of economic crisis and currency collapse. which creates significant uncertainty for long-term planning. Um, Also, adding a little bit of racism. I'm being honest because I've heard some issues with racism down there. Um, they have a history of that. Um, just like that incident with the girl from Argentina that said something racist in Rio de Janeiro, and she got arrested. That's something that's kind of known amongst Argentinians. So be careful of that. Me, as far as Argentina, no, I'm not a fan of that Argentina at all. Next on the list, India. Uh, India is a new addition specifically to this conflict framing. It's already been purchasing discount Russian oil throughout the Ukraine conflict, has refused to join the Western sanction and deeply strategic relationship with both Russia and the United States simultaneously. In a US versus Iran, Russia, China scenario, India would be certainly maintain neutrality. It needs Russian energy and Chinese trade too much to pick a side. It's the world's most popular country with massive agriculture output, growing domestic energy production, and extensive immigration pathway for skilled workers. Um, Primary risk immigration to India is generally difficult. It is not traditional for immigrant receiving country, and bureaucracy is significant. Air quality, infrastructure, extreme heat in many regions are serious quality of life concerns. Also, um, certain parts of India have issues with SA attacks on women. Let's see what's going on over here. Argentina is where most of the NZs went. Yeah, that's true. And yeah, they are part of BRICS. So we got, I think Brazil is supposed to join up with BRICS. They haven't. But we throw this next one out here. South Africa. South Africa is an English speaking. Oh, a second. Sorry about that. South Africa is English speaking and has a vast mineral and agricultural resource, making it Africa's most advanced economy. However, persistent high crime, significant political instability, and ongoing power grid challenges, load shedding blackouts significantly reduce its appeal compared to other options on this list. And basically, those are going to be your negatives. Local unemployment is very high. So why they give me this, I have no idea why Claude spit this one out. But that is a possibility. South Africa. Portugal. We have to talk about Portugal because they hit in the travel news today. Portugal is one of the world's top expat destinations with its D7 passive income and digital nomad visa, making it among European most accessible countries for foreign residents. It generates roughly 60% of its electricity from renewable, and already is one of the fastest growing foreign-born communities globally. English is widely spoken in its cities. Primary risk is NATO membership, and EU membership means Portugal could be involved in a European conflict, more energy import dependent than other options. Plus, this is what went down with Portugal in travel news. They made a decision that it's going to take 10 years to get Portugal citizenship if you do citizenship by investment. Originally, it was supposed to be 5, then they added in another 5. So it's a lot of people are disappointed. So now Portugal is not really the spot. A lot of people want to go to get residency because you get It's taken too long to even just get the residency card. Now to get citizenship, it's taking forever. So yeah, Portugal was kind of on my list, but not anymore. If it's going to take that long to get citizenship, I mean, there's countries you can get citizenship faster than 10 years. I mean, we're talking like you buying a piece of property and you get citizenship, you know, right then and not right then and there, but about a year or two and stuff like that. You're better off just going to one of the Baltic regions and stuff and get citizenship. And next on our list is Chile. Chile is a new addition to this revised list because I revised it. It was a near miss in the original and Pacific. Let me get and speak about that. Chile has no meaningful military alliance with any belligerent. Sits at the south of tip of South America and is geographically one of the most isolated nations on Earth. It has significant copper and lithium reserve, critical minerals that both China and the West want. It functioning democracy is relatively stable economy by Latin American standards and the Pacific coastline that gives it trade access without Middle Eastern dependency. Um, the primary risk for that, the imports most of its petroleum and gas. Energy dependent is a real vulnerability if global shipping is disrupted. Has experienced significant political turbulence since 2019, and immigration pathway are less developed than Uruguay or Argentina. I don't know. I think Chile's a potential. Portugal is still a great option if you can get the residency permit fairly quickly. Their changes of the golden visa is the biggest downfall. It is. That was like major disappointment. I was looking for it because they was gonna jack it up to 7, and then they went back and they would made it to like I want them to go back to 5 or even do a 3. But now they did 10, it was like it's not even like for retirees, it's not even worth it for retirees to even go there. I mean, it's just isn't, just not worth it. Oh, here's a place I haven't been to in a while. Iceland. Iceland runs nearly 100% renewable energy, geothermal, and hydropower, and is completely independent of the Middle East oil. The remote North Atlantic location provides strategic isolation. However, the population is only 380,000 and is far too small to absorb significant immigration, and Icelandic language is notoriously difficult. Job opportunities are limited. So that's going to be your risk. So I will tell you, Iceland, I was in Reykjavik. Reykjavik is kind of one of those nice little towns. It was kind of funny because the story how I ended up over there was when my unit was coming back from Iraq and we had some plane problems and we landed in Iceland. It was kind of shocking when everybody in the airport see a whole plane full of U.S. Army soldiers just come up and load up in the bus, and they were like, "What the hell is going on?" So that happened, and they took care of us. And the golden visa will likely not be a great option in Portugal. Too many foreigners were outpricing locals. Same with Spain. Same thing with Spain. That's why they got rid of the real estate option. I would have loved Spain. It's specifically go down to Valencia, to be honest with you. Spain is still probably on my list right now. But you got to be careful with some European places. What up? What up? NE Patriot. Good evening, my brother. Let's go next. Oh, this is a nice little country we haven't even mentioned anywhere in the travel space. Botswana. Botswana is an unconventional pick that deserves serious consideration in a specific conflict framing. It is one of Africa's most stable and least corrupt democracies, has no military alliance with any belligerent, and is completely removed from all conflict theaters. It has significant diamond wealth that will give economic resiliency. English is the official language. It is landlocked but surrounded by relatively stable neighbors and far from any coastline that could become a naval conflict zone. It has no history of taking sides in major powers, which is cool. Um, the primary risk is that it's landlocked and heavily dependent on importing food and fuel, vulnerable to supply chain disruption, which is what's going on right now. Small population, less than 2.5 mil, and the economy limit job opportunity is significant. Less developed infrastructure than other options on the list. Interesting. Yeah, I want to go visit Valencia, and I'll keep Magalaga in his. Oh, Magalaga's better. Okay, I'll definitely keep that in mind if I ever head out that in that direction. Providing the freaking, charge you an arm and a leg. If if Aaron's in here, he's gonna love this one. Paraguay. Oh, good old Paraguay. Paraguay makes the revised list because of a specific conflict framing. It is landlocked in the heart of South America. It has no military alliance with any party, generally near all of its electricity from massive Itchapi. I'm not going to pronounce that. Hydroelectric dams which it shares with Brazil. Has very cheap access and accessibility. It has very cheap and accessible residency and has historically stayed completely out of major power conflict. It is not well known as a destination. Well, it's slowly starting to get there now, which is in a crisis, is actually an advantage and will be far less overwhelmed than Uruguay or Argentina. That is very, very true. The only risk of that is landlocked, and it's one of South America's least developed economies, significant corruption, and very limited on job market. Spanish and Guarani are the languages. Integration takes time. Infrastructure lags well behind its neighbors. So I will say this about Paraguay. I am thinking about getting a permanent residency there. As a second one, already have temp with Mexico. That I would seriously consider. But again, the job thing, that would be an issue. But I got to talk to Aaron about that. But Paraguay looks very interesting, to be honest with you. Now the honorable mentions. Oh, Canada. Yeah, good old Canada. Canada is the gold standard for crisis immigration. Ain't that the truth? It has a massive landmass, enormous energy reserve, one of the most organized immigration system, and geographically isolated from likely conflict zones in Europe and Asia. English and French are widely spoken, removing language barriers for most Westerners. Yeah. When you know what hits a fan, everybody runs to Canada. They have an express entry system among the world's most accessible skilled migration programs. I will tell you the job market up there right now is not good. I've talked to some Canadians. They told me it's not good. Primary risk: if the U.S. is directly involved in World War III, Canadian close alliance and shared borders could draw them into conflict. Right now, the relationship between Canada and the United States under this administration ain't good. So Canada right now is a really, really strong candidate if things was to break out, head north. I'm being dead ass honest. Um, Australia. Australian island geographically is a great strategic asset, physically separated from every likely World War III theater by thousands of miles of ocean. It's English-speaking, wealthy, and major export of coal, LNG, and uranium, and as well established skilled immigration program that's already handled record intake numbers. Primary risk: as a Five Eyes member and U.S. ally, Australia could be drawn into the Pacific conflict following, particularly involving China. Let me explain what the Five Eyes mean. Five Eyes is because I trained with the Five Eyes before when I was in the military. The Five Eyes are the intelligence communities. These are countries where you share intelligence, no questions asked. There's only 5 countries that does this: United States, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, UK. Those are the only Five Eye countries where literally if they was to come up to you and say, hey, I need information on that, you just tell them, go to that drawer right there, and when you finish, could you grab me a glazed donut on top of the cabinet, please, and bring it to me? I greatly appreciate it. That simple. Those are the only countries that share information like that. So this bullshit about our greatest ally is Israel is bullshit, because they'll never be a Five Eyes partner because no one trusts them. So keep that in mind. But Australia, again, the problem is getting out there. If you've got these oil prices, the fuel prices flying out there is going to be an issue. So Norway. Damn, we got some cold spots, bro. Norway is among the world's wealthiest, most energy independent nations, sitting on a massive North Sea oil and gas reserve while generating 90% of its domestic energy from hydro plants. Its sovereign wealth fund, the world's largest, and provide extraordinary economic resiliency. However, strict immigration requirements and Norwegian language barrier make it harder to access than other options. The only drawback is NATO membership means Norway is likely to be drawn in any major conflict. Language barrier is significant. So if you learn the Norwegian language, you're good to go. You're pretty much good to go. Oh, you're going to love this one. Malaysia. Malaysia is a pragmatic, low-cost option. It is a net oil and gas exporter from Petronas. English is widely spoken, and this has Malaysia is my second home program, specifically designed for long-stay foreigners. However, its location in South Asian places close potential to South China Sea conflict zone, where primary risk factors World War III scenario involving China. That's the only thing. It's that whole thing. If they get in a conflict, it's going to be with China and stuff like that. That I'm not going to be worried too much about, because right now this whole thing, Malaysia is a good option if they got a good program. My only thing is very low cost of living compared to the Western countries, which is really good. Diversified growth economy with strong manufacturing and tech sector. That's good. And you can speak English, was widely spoken over there. But what about getting a job for foreigners? That's the thing I got to do more research on. So Malaysia is a possibility. And this is the last one on our list, guys. Kazakhstan. I know y'all saying, what the hell? Kazakhstan has some of the world's largest oil and uranium reserve and has maintained a careful balance act between Russia and the West. However, it shares 7,600-kilometer border with Russia, an enormous liability in any World War III scenario, and it's harder to immigrate to, less developed in terms of Western amenities and strategic language and cultural barriers. Yeah, and learning the Kazakhstan Russian language barrier is significant. Russian you can probably learn. Kazakhstan, I don't know where you can learn that, but if you learn Russian, you should be fine. So those are the options. To be honest with you, if I was to choose any one of these, that one sounds a lot more feasible. As cold as that mother is, that sounds feasible. Another one I would consider would probably be, I don't know about Uruguay. No, actually it was it would be Switzerland. Even though there's going to be some exporting things, some supply chain disruption, that's the only issue. But if I was to choose what sounds that's going to be the ideal place, that's going to be, out of all these, would be Norway. Portugal, Spain, or Greece? Spain, yeah, but I'm hearing Spain got some corruption issues, but who don't? Greece, I'm getting pissed off at Greece because the flotillas that's supposed to be going to Gaza, they're there, and they're letting the IDF, who are 800 miles away from home, go over there and raid those flotillas, which is illegal. And the Greece ain't doing spit about it. So I'm a little pissed off with Greece right now. Portugal it's a possibility with Portugal, but I don't know. Portugal, if they didn't have that issue with the freaking everyone from Tel Aviv has moved to Athens. Oh fuck. I know Greece is pissed. They're pissed. But Portugal, if they didn't have that issue, if they didn't come up with that ruling, I would tell you Portugal would be it. It is one of the best expat locations. You know what? Let me see if I can find it. Let me get that goddamn link. Hold up a second. Got it. I'm gonna drop the link. Anybody wants to come up? Yeah, if Portugal, it is the best. I'm not even gonna lie, but you got to be careful not to overwhelm it. I mean, and then on top of that, it's really better if you stay on the outskirts because that's when it gets cheaper. You can't go to like places like Lisbon or some of the other major places, you know. But I'm really not really knocking Portugal. But like I said, when they did that whole thing with the golden visa, but still, they were still getting money was still getting going in Greece because you had the rest of the Baltic nations coming down there to Greece to go relax and stuff. So, but even though they bring money, they also bring in all that headache and stuff. Go to Thailand, everybody's complaining about them right now. And guess what? That's just another headache that's going to happen. But yeah, it's still one of the best expat locations, but it's just Jesus, man. It's the 5 year ones. It's gonna be crazy. Um, AI, because they're automating all this stuff. Um, Networking side or the security side? I would, I think going on the networking side, cloud and doing cloud with AI would be best. And but I would do more like cloud security with AI. So you get your AWS or Microsoft or whatever. I would do that more security type. Or if you want to do architect, that'd be great. But throw in the AI courses on top of that, it's going to make you more marketable. So that way you understand the whole AI thing. That's my personal viewpoint. There's nothing wrong with the security side aspect of it. There is, you know, there are jobs out there that's asking for security. So yeah, absolutely. They got trade like construction, hospitality. Um, yeah, so those trades do exist, but they're going to be mostly in Europe. Those jobs, I will tell you off the top of my head, I've seen in Switzerland, Sweden, Finland, um, Norway. Shoot, I'll post a channel up in the community um tab because there's this lady there's a couple of YouTubers that's promoting, getting jobs in Europe. And that's where you're mostly going to find it. You're not going to really find it in the Latin American countries because they're kind of restrictive on that, um, about giving jobs to foreigners. Um, but you're going to get them mostly in those locations. If you working with a multinational company, obviously you can get a job. Um, but as far as with places like I mentioned in some of the list and some of them on this list, if you can get a multinational, get a job with a company from here to one of these countries and tell you, I was looking at Switzerland and they were paying good money. I'm not gonna lie, even though the cost of living is expensive. I was seeing $80,000, $90,000 cybersecurity jobs, $100,000 jobs in Switzerland. So that's nothing to sneeze at. Even with their high cost of, with taxes and all that stuff, that's still survivable. Other major issue with Portugal residency is that they make you become a tax resident and their taxes you worldwide income. Most don't realize that their brackets are high. That's very true. That's very true. Also, that's like that is Brazil. Brazil will tax you on everything except for your Social Security. If you got property back in the States, they'll tax you on that. That's why, that's another reason why I got turned off with Brazil. You report everything. If you got stuff like in bank accounts in another country, the banks overseas, the banks are required to report that and you get taxed on it. That's why there's so much red tape with Brazil and there when you file taxes. So it's a nightmare with them. So it's like, no, I'm not, no, that's just too much. And those are other things you have to research. When I tell you guys, like, do your research when you plan on going to another country. Do your research, because this is just like a tip of the barrel, what I just showed you. Um, on a personal level, where I would love to move to, ideally would be, well, it's down on this list, but I have a couple. One is Mexico, other one would be Spain, Portugal, Par- I got to see Paraguay. I'm gonna get the Paraguay residency. Definitely looking at Lafayette. I'm gonna go out there eventually. Um, Actually, Lafayette, you'll easily get your if you can get a piece of property over there, you can get your citizenship. You can get your passport fairly quickly, and it's a lot cheaper doing it through Lafayette. Thing about Lafayette is their winters are cold. Their winters are cold. But yeah, but that's the one if you want to get that um EU passport and Schengen access. Now, Pooh Man, you said about Uruguay. I'm gonna tell you the benefits of going to Uruguay or Paraguay if you get citizenship there. The benefit for that, if you get it, is you're gonna have Mercosur access, which is similar to the Schengen access, but you get it for Brazil. You get it for Brazil. You get Uruguay. If you're like in Uruguay, you get it for Paraguay, Brazil, and there's another country I keep forgetting. But you can basically go there just on your ID card. You can leave it. You don't even have to freaking use your passport. Have some Riga Black. Okay. They are a Schengen country. Yeah, I know. That's the thing about it. You can get access to the Schengen area. That's the beautiful thing. If you want something quick, down get their passport, get their residency, and you're good. Those are the little sleep. And guys, let me say something about this. The EU is not, it's not expensive if you know where to go to live, because you can go to smaller towns on the outskirts of major cities and just commute in, and it's cheaper. Because a lot of people think, okay, like for Germany, you got to live in Berlin. No, you can go on the outskirts of Berlin where it's cheaper and just commute it to work. You don't have to live in Berlin. That's the difference. And you can stretch your dollars, you know. But that is something you're gonna have to investigate. And a lot of guys don't do that. They think, hey, look, Latin America is cheap, your dollars will stretch. Yeah, well, not necessarily now, because you go to freaking down to Rio, what's apartment in a nice neighborhood in Rio, down in like Ipanema or down on the beach, or near the beach. How much is rent? Rent's gonna be like freaking almost like New York prices. Poland, the thing with Poland is that Poland is, I don't know how to describe Poland. Um, like I said, I put my parameters in there. Um, the parameters I put, my 4 criterias That's what I did. Um, because the main thing about the criteria is was able to get the job market. Because, like I said, get the job market and stuff like that. Because a lot of people think that, hey, let's go work remote and we're good. No, 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 no. That's not it. Working remote, that that market's going to be like gone. It's everybody wants everybody back in the office, and plus also we're remote. The VPN stuff, yeah, I got to be careful with that because there are rules and regulations about data leaving the boundaries of the United States. And a lot of people think, hey, get this VPN, this, and that. All that VPN does is just mask your location. That data is riding a signal that's leaving the United States, you got a problem. But Europe beats Latin America in every metrics. You have a point. It does. It really does. It do beats it on various aspects. Safety, to some degree, cost of living, um, your crime. Crime rate way less depending on where you're going. So that I have to agree with you. But anyway, like I said, on all this list, if I was to choose one, I'll probably hit Norway. Although Malaysia starts to look interesting though. Malaysia is looking interesting. Hold a second, read that again. I got to see what the job market's like, but I'll throw Malaysia in there. I got to see what the immigration process is. If I can get citizens, I'm able to become a citizen there, which I believe you can, which is one of the only Southeastern countries you can become a citizen at. If you're able to do that, yeah, I would probably look at Malaysia as well. So it would be Norway and Malaysia, those two, if I was to look. But I would probably, yeah, if they have the job that I'm looking for, paying the price, yeah, I'll probably do Malaysia. But so Malaysia, Norway, and Switzerland, those three, those would be my three. So anyway, we're almost coming up on an hour, dude. So I'm gonna bounce out of here. Thanks guys for coming. Appreciate you all. Hope you got something out of it. And these are just places I would go during conflict if I wanted to relocate. And only one passport broke country was on here, and that was Brazil. But that would be iffy. I'll tell you the truth. But anyway, I'll catch you guys later. And hold up a second. Who said? Well, I'm gonna catch up on a few of these comments before I bounce out. Hold up a second. Do you think if you invest in property, you can get citizenship in Malaysia? Yeah, there's a possibility you can. That's how most citizenship by investment works. If you want to get your residency, you usually buy a piece of property. You have to be of a certain value. You can get that. So yeah, you have to do that. Yeah, they're gonna run those pockets, but I'll tell you what, man, that's gotta think about safety, man. Gotta really think about safety. And if you're with the right company, you're pretty good. But like I said, I gotta do some more research. Malaysia and New Zealand sounds good. Out of the two, Bootsy, Malaysia's gonna look good. Yeah, New Zealand, but you don't, like I said, you're gonna probably, if everybody starts going to New Zealand, it's gonna get overrun, and they're gonna get very restricted about that. And that's the thing that's going on right now. Everybody's getting restricted. Even to some degree, Paraguay was changing up their stuff a little bit, so it was getting a little bit harder to get theirs. everybody's making changes to their citizenship by investment. Um, so you really got to pay attention and constantly pay attention to that stuff. Because getting that stuff, it's not as easy as everybody think it is. I mean, you can get it, but if you wait and wait, it's going to pass you by and you're going to lose out. That's why I tell these guys that in these other channels, they want to sit back here and go travel for women and stuff. That's on you. But when this economy dumps and you're trying to find a place to go, I mean, you're going to get screwed if you go to the wrong place, because a lot of these places these guys are going to, they're not going to hire you, or it's going to be under the table type stuff, and you're going to get screwed. Whereas you can go to a country, hey, I got this skill set, and you know, you're going to get yourself an actual job doing a career that you can do, like doing cybersecurity or doing construction and stuff like that, or being a truck driver and stuff like that. A lot of that you're going to get in Europe. You're going to get those jobs. And I would suggest get those jobs now while they're hot, because once they're gone, that's it. France right now, it's hard to even, they can't even get jobs. Even people coming out of Harvard, they're having a hard time getting jobs. Same thing in England. This whole thing that's going on in Iran, it's global. It's the global economy. So this whole thing, this fight, we just picked a fight for no damn reason. That's causing a global meltdown economically. Everybody's globally suffering. It is. It is. And they're having a hard time, there's no job growth. Because why the petrodollar? That's why I looked at this and picked those things, and that was one of the other criteria, was no reliance on the petrodollar. Yeah, they are the most visited country. I haven't visited France, and I would love to check that out, to be honest with you. But it's like now it's getting expensive to fly now. Some people are telling me that we was talking with this on the Ulysses channel last night. Fucking airfares are starting to go up like $100 here. Fuel just went up like 40 cents. Regular car fuel just went up 40 cents in 2 days. Now I'm almost at $5. I'm at $4.99. Yeah, every region is fantastic. It depends on your flavor and stuff. But you got to be very, very you really got to do your research, guys, and this is what I preach on this channel. That's why I changed up the channel and changed up a lot of things, because right now we got to start thinking about plan B, or the retirement spot. Because if you got a retirement and if you qualify for Social Security and stuff like that, you may want to think about, do I want to spend my money here, or do I want to go someplace inexpensive, stretch my dollars, get something that's a lot more peaceful? Think about it. I mean, money wise, I mean, that's just practical. You want to get something cheaper. You want to be, get something more peaceful. So where you want to go? I mean, I'm not saying Europe is cheaper, but balance that out. Weigh your options and stuff. That's what this channel is about. That's what we're going to be about. Well, your generation may not, so you better start saving your money. That's all I'm going to say. Save up and start thinking about a place you want to go to. Get that residency card, because residency is getting strict, getting tighter. They've made changes for Mexico, because I had exactly. But me, I got my 3-year residency card from Mexico. So if I had to go down there and spend the money that I had to spend, that means I'm serious about it. So I am looking to do that. But we got to see. I got a lot of saving up to do for the condo or home, wherever I'm gonna go. There's a lot of things I'm gonna do, but right now, I highly recommend you guys start thinking about that, because old people shouldn't be working, and if you're working, well, there's a problem. And then you got old people that get in Social Security and they can't afford to live in the United States, so they got to leave. Some people are traveling. There are cheaper places to live off of that stuff. So what you got to do? If I get Social Security with my disability and stuff like that from the military, basically I'm good. I'm good to move overseas. Get me a place to rent them. If you retire at 62, yeah. Depends on what year. It depends on what age you're retiring at. It's actually, it's depending on the age. Social Security will support you saving investment well, like I said, it all depends on when you retire, when you apply for it. Because I think at the age of, what was it, 67, it's like $2,000 and change. And usually there's a cost of living that goes up. Every year, Social Security goes up to deal with cost of living. Some weird ass formula. But for me, that, and I'm already getting VA disability, combine that, I'm good. I can roll out, like, even if I'm getting 1,700, combine it with that, I'm still good. I'm getting 2 checks. I can go live in another country. So anyway, guys, let me bounce out of here. I'll catch up with you guys later. I'll probably throw something out next week, and I'll see you guys. Thanks, guys, for showing up. I appreciate you guys.